This is Scott Richmond.
And Arnie Sherman.
You're listening to What Do You Know on Newstalk KGVO, AM 1290 and 101.5 FM. Arnie, where do we start?
Good morning, Scott.
Okay, it's the morning.
You know, normally I begin the shows with a lead-in that ties into our guest.
Yes.
And today we have Justin Barnes, who's the general manager of Grizz Sports Properties, and we're going to have a very interesting conversation about the Montana Grizzlies and their place in the sports hierarchy. But, you know, given that fact that the election happened since the last time we did a show together, I would be remiss in not commenting about this election.
Right.
You know, to my mind, this election highlighted the stark divisions in the country.
Yep.
You know, Trump won the Electoral College. Clinton won the popular vote by more than 1 million votes. Trump won most of rural America. Clinton almost all the cities and urban areas. Trump won a majority of the white vote. Clinton a large majority of the non-white vote. You know, Trump supporters took his fiery rhetoric figuratively.
Right.
And I think, you know, Clinton supporters, Democrats, took what he said literally. And I think they feel, as I do, that words do matter. You know, the FBI has already reported a rise in hate crimes, and Republicans are calling for unity, and Democrats are saying that, you know, they're going to give Trump the same support that Republicans gave Obama when Obama got into office. So, you know, actions do speak louder than words, right? We all know that.
Right.
So Trump has appointed Steve Bannon as a white nationalist and former CEO of alt-right Breitbart Media, is a new White House strategist.
Right.
Glenn Beck calls him a dangerous man. And he has been lauded by the Ku Klux Klan, who also are organizing a march in North Carolina in honor of Trump being elected to the presidency.
Nice guy.
So, you know, the administration plans on deporting 3 million Americans. That's 1% of our population. You know, and that will not happen without great upheaval. So this is all to say, really, that things appear to be going to get worse before they get better. And no matter what party you are, or who you support, or what you think of America's place in the world, we are the one indispensable nation. And our leaders and our people need to take a deep breath and act accordingly.
Right.
That's my feeling. We have to be our better selves and understand that this country is and has always been a melting pot for all of our citizens. And all of our citizens are real Americans. There's no one category or one group that are the real Americans and others aren't. This is not some reality show. This is real life.
Right.
So, you know, as Abraham Lincoln said, and these are sort of my parting words on this, a house divided against itself cannot stand. And I think we have to keep that in mind as we move forward from this day.
Yeah, well, and let me say this. Nothing unifies a community more, okay, than a common goal and common belief. But also, that's where sports comes in.
Right.
I say that to you because I've seen it firsthand.
As long as you have an overwhelmingly winning record.
Well,
as long as you're winning bigly.
Think about it for a second. He had the New Jersey Generals.
That's true. Well, Justin's going to be joining us shortly, and we're going to talk about the Grizz in their place.
Justin Barnes is joining us, general manager of Learfield Sports and Grizzly Athletics, and he'll be with us. And what's interesting about him is he's like us. He's a fellow East Coaster. So that should be fun, right?
Sure. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we can ask him where to get a good pastrami sandwich in New Hampshire. He may not know. Anyway, we'll be back with What Do You Know? Right after this, our guest is Justin Barnes. Okay, we are back with What Do You Know? With Scott and Arnie on KGVO. Our guest is Justin Barnes. Welcome to the mic, Justin.
Thanks, Scott.
Justin, it's good to have you here. So
Thanks,
tell our audience, our listeners, what exactly do you do as general manager of Grizzly Sports Properties?
Great question. So I head up the office that manages the multimedia and sponsorship rights for the Grizzlies. So everything, whether it's corporate sponsorship, advertising, the radio broadcast, the TV rights, the website, social media, anything that connects a sponsor to our fan base runs through our office. And so corporate hospitality is within that, tailgates for businesses, programs, working with nonprofits, all of it falls under that umbrella.
And you worked in New Hampshire and Maine. You worked for a couple of high-profile, FCS schools there, University of New Hampshire, University of Maine. Where do we rank in the pecking order of things? How does the Grizzly mantra and the Grizzly logo and the Grizzly profile fit in your scheme of things?
Well, it's a great question. So I work for Learfield Sports,
right.
and Learfield now, it was Learfield Sports, and Learfield manages the multimedia rights and sponsorship rights at over 120 Division I universities across the country. I was lucky enough to this is my third school that I've been the general manager at. Before this was the University of New Hampshire, like you said, and then the University of Maine before that. Maine is where I hail from. That was my alma mater, so that was an easy start for me there, and then have progressed. And I will say it's a progression because although the Grizz, are an FCS football team and play in that same conference as the University of New Hampshire, the same conference as the University of Maine, there could not be a bigger world of difference just between the following that we have here, especially in Missoula, but across Montana, the loyalty of our fans, the rabidity of our fans, which can cut both ways, and just the size of the program. The universities themselves, very similarly sized. Right. In fact, enrollment at the University of Montana compared to the other two schools I've worked at is a little lower. But when you compare what I do, the sports programs of a typical football day, at the University of New Hampshire, again, same conference, if we can get 15 to 17,000 fans at a game, you're talking about a great turnout. And obviously here we've got an average fan base of 24 to 27,000 just at the Washington Grizzlies.
And we're televised.
And
we're on
regionally,
KGVO on radio, the games.
That 22 station radio network that puts us all across Montana and into Washington. And so it's just the feel of the Grizz in this town is more of a pro team feel.
So in those towns, when you worked in those towns, was sports and football the two biggest topics of conversation like they are here?
Well, and what's funny, and this is why we as the Grizzlies do so well in Montana, is in Maine and New Hampshire, even though neither of those states has a pro team, just like Montana, there are a handful of minor league programs. Everyone out there talks about the Patriots, the Red Sox, the Bruins, the Celtics, right down the line. And we might even be behind Harvard and BC by the time it's all done. Here, the conversation starts Grizz.
We're in a unique space here.
Yeah.
I mean, we're the fact that we're 7 hours away from the nearest metropolitan area is both a blessing and a curse. When it comes to certain levels of sports and sports consumption.
The pressure on our football coach is not unlike the same pressure that's on University of Texas, Ohio State, Michigan, those kinds of programs. I mean, it is a topic of conversation continuously.
Absolutely. And Grizz fans, and to their credit, as they should, they expect a lot from the program.
Sure. And I don't want to single out just football. I mean, Lady Grizz have their following. And, we had Robin Selvig, amazing coach, 36 years, Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
The men's program in basketball.
I was just going to say what Travis DeCuire is doing with men's basketball right now. I mean, there's just so much excitement around all of the Grizz. I mean, softball starting last year, and what a wonderful product that was, and a great venue for us. I mean, it's just, I feel like I came in at a really strong time.
Sure. You did come in a strong time. And just let's furnish us with a few details about you, okay? Because you didn't just end up here out of nowhere. You came here back in the spring, correct?
Yeah, I moved from New Hampshire in April.
Okay, and where were you before that?
So I was at the University of New Hampshire, which is in Durham, New Hampshire, living in Portsmouth. And before that, so I was there for 4 years or so as the general manager, and then before that was at the University of Maine in Orono, Maine, which again is my alma mater. I grew up in Bangor, Maine, which is 15 minutes south of the campus for the University of Maine, and was there for 4 years as well, 4 or 5 years.
Now, were you hired by Learfield while you were in Maine, or were you in Maine first, and then they acquired the rights and then brought you with them?
So I was actually working for the local CBS affiliate in Bangor in television advertising. I got to know through, because our television station there, WABI, aired the University of Maine hockey games.
Right.
And hockey is the big
That's their football
thing out there. I got to know the guys that were the Learfield representatives of Black Bear Sports Properties out there. And they recruited me eventually, and then kind of the rise from there was fun.
What year was that?
So whatever 11 years is ago.
Okay, so 2005.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
So a very pivotal time, though, in sports, quite honestly, because digital and the digitization
Absolutely.
of content really took off, and then mobile started to, it was just the beginning phases. I remember this.
So true. So when I started, it was still really, it was the tail end of sponsorship, meaning you get a sign
Right.
in the outfield or on the field, you get maybe one radio ad and here's your tickets.
Right.
Since then, we've really, and you know, I think the market forced us to do this, but it's been, I think, a very good positive change, and not just in college sports, but professional sports.
All over. I mean, every sports stadium
Right.
is named after something.
Exactly.
Right?
We had to learn how to tailor sponsorships more like marketing campaigns. And
Right.
and that means businesses expect an ROI. They want analytics. They want to know that in a program. It's not a donation, because it's not. It's
Right.
an investment.
And this stuff changes. I mean, I was watching a game the other day, and they were talking about Nissan Stadium, and I couldn't figure out where it was, and I realized it's where the Tennessee Titans play now, but that's not what it used to be called.
Right. Yeah. Naming rights is a
Huge thing.
huge thing, and that's a hard, challenging. You know, to find the right partner for a naming rights opportunity is
The
one of the
Scott
hardest.
and Arnie hot dog stand right outside the
Oh,
stadium.
wait a second. We're not, look, this is the Washington Grizzly Stadium. It's named after a family.
Right.
Because they donated and they paid
And there are other
for it.
stadiums that have that same kind of naming.
Okay, but isn't it interesting? But they probably, nobody's collecting a paycheck from them to have Washington Grizzly Stadium on there. It was grandfathered in, correct?
When they put the money up to
like
build
the
it.
Washington Company now, Washington Grizzly Stadium. I mean, you'd love to,
Right.
but right?
Yeah, no, and I wasn't involved, obviously, in that naming right, but
that naming
yeah,
right is what's
I couldn't go and call it the KGVO Stadium right now, even if you gave me $5 million, probably. But
No, because I mean, in '86 they put the majority of the money up to build it.
exactly.
Smart.
And if they had a naming right, it would then be called the Washington Grizzly Stadium. And then-
Double Washington.
Yeah, double Washington.
But so coming here, having spent 11 years in the business,
You've been here 9 months now, right? About 9 months?
about 9 months.
9 months. Yeah. What do you think of Missoula?
I love it. So, and you know this, I moved out here. Really, but not. It wasn't just that it was presented as an option. They recruited me because Learfield knew how much I liked Montana. I've visited, and mostly in the Bozeman area, even though that's the enemy territory. I have 4 of my best friends from Maine that grew up and went to high school with me and have lived in Bozeman for over 10 years. So I've been coming to Montana once a year, twice a year for the last 10 years. And, I've been very open to say that
Right.
if an opportunity ever arose, especially, not at Montana State, but at Montana, that I would be more than interested. When the general manager, Nick Garner, who I think the world of, when he left to go head up and be the general manager at Missouri, which is one of the first schools that Learfield had. It was the first. I was the first call that was placed, and I was the first yes that same day. And 2-3 weeks later, I was driving across the country with all my stuff and have not looked back.
That's great.
It is great.
Let me just tell you something. You're here 9 months. This competition in this state is the strongest I've ever seen anywhere. When I was running the Montana World Trade Center, which is domiciled at the University of Montana, and I went to Bozeman to work with companies in Bozeman, some companies would not work for me or work with me.
Because of your affiliation
Because
with the
I
Grizz?
was affiliated with the Grizzlies school.
Yeah. Oh, it's a
Company that needed our help,
Yeah.
that wanted our advice, said, if you open an office here, we'll talk to you, but I'm not going to work with, I'm a Bobcat, and I'm not going to work with a Grizzly.
I know, and it's crazy, right? But I
Right.
get it. I do get it. It's a fever. We actually air the Bobcats on our sister station.
Sure.
There's a good audience here. There are people here that are MSU fans.
Right, and there are people in Bozeman that are fans here.
Question for you, though. So let's take it to the point of, the fandom and the excitement of the fans, the tailgates. How do the tailgates here, clearly they're adapted for the cold weather and the mountains, versus Maine, New Hampshire, and then some maybe of the other like southern state schools.
Right. I was going to say that it doesn't compare to the Maine and the Northeast just in general. I would say, and I've been to a number of big. Luckily, we have obviously close connections to a number of big schools that Learfield works with, the Alabamas and the Iowas of the world. So I've been to some really exciting tailgate atmospheres, and I will say, and I'm being very sincere when I say this, what Missoula and what the University of Montana does with their game day would rival. It's tough to say land mass wise and how expansive an Alabama tailgate becomes, but the atmosphere that we create rivals any school, I will say.
About 10 years ago, front page of USA Today sports section had a split page. They said that two of the most exciting places in America for football, and they had University of Miami and they had University of Montana.
Is that right?
Yeah, right on the front page.
I have to say that I've been hearing that.
Well, we give free beer. Where else does that happen?
Well, it's incredible. I mean, exactly. It is incredible.
If you're overage, of course.
You're welcome everywhere. Everywhere you're welcome. Everyone who you could literally go through that and not pay for a thing and drink beer at 5 people's tailgates that you know.
Well, it's such a networking experience. That's where everybody goes to network with people they can't see during the work week.
That's a great point. And that's, although I've only been here 9 months, my job is to get around and try to be in the community as much as I can. And it is amazing how many people I see on a football Saturday. Yeah. It's the same crowd that I see.
Well, this is airing before the GrizzCat game. It's going to air afterwards, but we're taping beforehand.
Right.
Wait till you see that crowd.
Oh, I know.
And wait till you see what's going to happen on that. What's your prediction, by the way? What do you think?
This is, I don't even want to knock on anything. I don't want Stitt to hear me. I think we're going to throw down on the Cats. We have a lot to prove, and we have a lot of work to do to get into the playoffs, to be frank. I think, if we win decisively, I guess yesterday, but if we win decisively when we play, I think we'll have a playoff shot at home, which is really exciting and something I don't think a lot of fans realize is still on the table.
It's still on the table, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
A 7-4 record with the wins we have would put us on the table.
And I think part of that is, and the way that we can cement that is if we decidedly beat the Cats. So I know that we are going to come hot. I think our fans are going to come hot, and I think it's going to be a throwdown. And prediction, I don't even want to say.
But you think the Grizz are going to win?
Yeah, I think the Grizz are going to win.
I think the Grizz.
I don't know if it'll be a 60-point win like some of the ones we've seen this year.
We've had a very interesting year. I've been following the Grizz for 20 years. Going to games. This is a very unusual season where you can roll 128 points in 2 weeks against they're not Division II schools. They're in our class. Mm-hmm. And then, stumble on the road.
Well, and it's funny. I mean, looking back now at the schedule, you look at St. Francis, the first team we played at home, and, a team that everyone kind of thought we were going to roll over. And it was one of the better games we played. Looking at them, they made playoffs. I mean, that team really proved themselves.
Yeah, they had a winning record last year, the year before.
And so it's, looking back, that was one of the more fun games to watch this year. It was such a competitive match.
A good game.
Some of the home games we've had have been just routes, but then you watch the away games and you watch our guys come together and gel together through injuries and new quarterbacks. And, it's just been, for me, it's been fun to follow the team.
Let's do a quick ID. Sorry to interrupt. You're listening to What Do You Know on Newstalk KGVO. Our guest is Justin Barnes. He's the GM of Learfield Sports and Grizzly Sports Properties. Question for you. You're talking a lot about the Grizzlies and their impact here and the tailgates and the networking. Talk about the impact that this has on the community, because I think that's an important kind of point to make.
Yeah, absolutely. So from an economic
standpoint.
So, and I don't know if I'll get all the names right here, but the university commissioned an economic impact study that I wrapped up or concluded, I think 2 months ago now. Mm-hmm. And we had a press conference, I think last month, to start, putting out some of that information. And Kent Haslam, who, if you haven't met him, is really a really forward-thinking, wonderful director of athletics who has obviously the health and the welfare of the student athletes in mind, but takes such a broad look at Grizzly athletics and what it does mean to the economy. So even Kent, though, was surprised, I think, to see some of the results that the study showed. So I brought just a couple, and I'm not a big statistics guy, but for example, through this study, it was determined that the department itself. So just Grizzly athletics. So the people that work in it, the families that comprises of all the coaches, the administration. Grizzly athletics was deemed to create 1,384 permanent jobs across a wide spectrum of industries. 120.8 million in gross sales by Missoula businesses and other organizations. 52.8.
Wait a minute. Hit on that point again. So $120 million.
120, yep, 0.8
annual
million.
gross sales, based on just being affiliated that those properties help generate. That's that's the biggest economic generator in town.
Yeah.
It has to be. I know the university.
Well, think about what this town would be like without the University of Montana sports program.
Right.
You know, and again, I don't want to. I love the football team and I love the football program, but we have a lot of other intercollegiate sports that are very exciting here.
How much does the hospital generate in terms of economic impact?
Not as much as sports in town.
That's incredible. I had no idea it was that.
So here's another good one. So a typical or an average home football game brings $2.5 million of spending into Missoula from just out of area attendees, not
people
counting
come
the people
and stay in the hotels, eat in the restaurants, hang out here for the weekend.
Not counting the 51% of season ticket holders who live in Missoula or the 50% of single game, not counting Missoula proper, coming to Missoula to spend money. $2.5 million a game.
How much?
$2.5 million.
Okay.
Over 53% of Grizz football attendees in 2015 were from outside of Missoula. And then I like this one. The average per group per day spending of Grizz football visitors is $200, which is higher than the $149 average for typical Montana.
Do you know how many
visitors.
Mo burgers that buys?
Yeah, right.
That's a lot.
Believe me, I know intimately. So I just think this is awesome. It's total spending by non-residents during home football games for football, and then men's and women's basketball lumped in 2015. So these are just visitors coming for those three sports. $30.7 million.
You know, in a town of 70,000, that's incredible.
But isn't it interesting? It's a town of 70,000, but every Western Montana, from Helena, Butte, Great Falls, everybody is kind of enamored with the Grizz. There's a line of demarcation, isn't there, where Bozeman where they pick up Cats fans?
Right.
Where is that? Is it Butte?
Yeah, it's probably, Butte generally leans more towards Missoula and Montana.
Yeah, I would say, and just looking at some more stuff that I brought here. So season ticket holders, the breakdown is that 51% of our football season ticket holders are from Missoula, 6% from Butte. And then you see the 8% Great Falls, 12% Kalispell, but then 6% driving the 5 hours from Billings.
Yeah.
Right? So,
sure.
I mean, it's,
and then 5% out of state.
Out of state, yeah.
So that's that interesting information. They're coming from Seattle and
Well, there's
Denver
a lot of
Salt
football
Lake.
tailgate parties and people gathering in other places around the country.
Yeah.
When we're in the playoffs and the national championships, there are Grizz parties everywhere. Do you get involved in the design of the logos and all that sort of thing as well?
Logos, meaning the team logo?
Yeah.
Not so much. One of the most powerful, I would say, assets that we have for our corporate partners to gain through the partnership with the Grizz is to use the Grizz marks and logos, though.
Sure.
So we're
a proud sponsor, proud supporter.
Yeah, and we find creative ways. If a sponsor is at a certain level where they are able to use that Grizz mark legally and for promotional purposes, which is very powerful.
Comparatively and proportionally, how powerful is the Grizz logo? I mean, I've heard stories that we're up there among one of the most recognized and most sought after logo around.
Like sports teams or like brands.
Yeah, like the Dallas Cowboy star.
I don't know numbers behind it. I don't have any research behind it, but just in what I do, I'm obviously, whenever I head to my company retreats, I'm with 120 people that are doing what I do at 120 schools. And I will tell you that, a lot of these are FBS schools. These are big programs. The Grizz is known. I will say that.
Is that right?
Absolutely.
More so than our mascot, obviously, even our mascot.
Yes, yeah.
Really? Because that's funny. My son goes to school down in Bozeman. He doesn't feel the same affiliation that we know our friends up here feel for the Grizz.
Meaning
the students, he's like, I could take it or leave it, like the Bobcats. Whereas a lot of kids here they're here. They're here to.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm saying that we're nationally recognized,
Right.
the Grizz.
Hang out in this town when you have a losing season. You don't want to be around it when the Grizz, go 5-7.
Look. You know what? It's like I watch my favorite team, the Giants. If the Giants lose, I have a bad day the next day. If the Grizz lose, I have a bad day the next day.
I talk about that, and that
it's depressing.
But and it is depressing. But I'll tell you that proves the importance and the power of the Grizz to the people who follow it. It's not like and when we talk to an advertiser about working with us so that we can try to develop business for them, we talk about the passion of our fans and how engaging the product is. It's not like, you watch a TV show and you see a television commercial in it. If it's your favorite TV show is just not that good, it'll last in your mind for 3 seconds. If the Grizz lose, you're upset for three days sometimes.
Right. Well, it's a phenomenal recruiting tool.
Absolutely.
I know when they bring potential student athletes here and they're in like this, for this Grizz Cat game, there'll be plenty of them there. And you see the scoreboard, and you see the fans, and you see every seat taken, and you see the level of intensity that gets you excited. You want to play here.
Agreed. And it's an attractive place to come after high school.
That scoreboard looks sharp too, huh?
Yeah, it looks great.
Let's ask him a quick question because, he got here in the spring, but it hasn't been, it's not an easy job either. I mean, one of the things first thing he had to do was replace a long-time personality. And to get a new personality and to have them accepted, I know this because I've been in this situation too here at the station. That's hard.
Sure.
That's a hard thing to work through. So tell us how that went.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mick and I, have communicated. We've met. I think the second day I was here, I had soup with Mick. I mean, so. When we talk about replacing a legend like that, you're not trying to fill Mick's
You're not going to
shoes.
get another Mick.
Right. You're not. I mean, Mick has built a legacy that is amazing and deserves every piece of credit that he has gotten. He still has all the respect from our department, the love. I mean, he did such a phenomenal job. And you say it's one of the first things I had to do. It was literally the first thing I had to do was embark on the search to replace him, and retire his shoes and try to find a new pair of shoes. And you don't want to just find the next Mick that sounds like Mick and talks like Mick and
it's like the Dodgers
Mick.
Trying to
exactly
their legend.
So we actually, as Learfield, along with the school, conducted an extensive national search for talent. We've had interested broadcasters literally from every corner of the country, and this speaks to the power of the Grizzlies here.
Right.
Interested in the position, sending resumes, sending tape. We called the list down with the help of the department, and then ultimately we landed on our friend Riley Corcoran, who, and I will say, our fandom is so passionate that if it was the wrong decision, we would have known it pretty quickly. But I think it speaks volumes to his talent that he has been so accepted by the Grizz fan base. And if you tune into a football game or a men's basketball game or our coaches' shows, you'll hear why. I mean, he really is.
Well, under Mick and under Riley, there are many Grizz fans like myself who turn the TV sound off and listen to it on the radio.
Absolutely.
It's
better.
I'm not going to say it, but it is.
It is better.
But here's the interesting thing. It's a calculated risk, right? When you bring a new personality in, if they reject him, and listen, there were reasons they would reject him. They thought he was too affiliated with this team or that team.
Young.
Too young, didn't have the gravitas that a Mick had. So he came in and he fit in perfectly. It was like a perfect fit.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what Riley does have. He's 26, I think.
Right.
He's got the love of the Grizz, and he grew up in Billings with a great family there who would take him to Grizz games growing up. As soon as he knew he wanted to be a broadcaster, his dream job was doing exactly what he's doing right now.
Right. We don't need an unbiased broadcaster.
Exactly, right?
You need a homer
That's right.
on the radio talking about your team.
Yeah. Well, but what I like about the mix between Riley and Greg is that Greg is more of that fandom. He's more of that homer. That guy, and he's great at it, too, because it's exciting to listen to. And Riley, though, is just youthful, got good energy, and he makes the game exciting.
Well, he likes the team, right? He's not just a broadcaster. He likes the team,
but he also...
When you watch it on TV, most of those guys are just pulled out of the mix. And
he likes statistics, too, which is key. I want statistics.
Well, our fans are very sophisticated fans. The men, the women, You know, it's cuts across the board. I mean, they're sophisticated.
Yeah, men's basketball. And,
Yeah.
and the other thing that he's doing for us, which I really think, you know, is a little new, is seizing on to digital. So he's been doing Facebook Live updates from practices. He'll bring a Facebook Live update on the road so that people can see what traveling with the team is like. You know, and those are his ideas. He wants to put out more, and that content for us is so valuable. I mean, that's why we have 140,000 followers on our Facebook page. It's content, and he is just adding to that.
Yeah, it's twice as many people as live in the town.
Right. Yeah.
We should get him on the air with Nicole over on 107.5 because she's from the University of Montana. She just started. She's our new brand manager there.
Sure.
She and Riley, get him on and to have him do like a weekly shift with her for like 10, 15 minutes. It's just a great idea because he has the youth, so he can speak to the students, but he also speaks to the alumni because of his authority about the team.
Well, we have a young team at the university, right? Kent is young. I mean, you're a young man. We have Riley's young.
The next generation.
It must be nice to have. It is like a generational change, right?
Absolutely.
A lot of enthusiasm and a lot of understanding of the tools and resources that we need to compete in a crowded sports marketplace.
Yeah, and I wish I was as young as Riley, but I'm 37, and Greg Sundberg, who heads up the Grizzly Scholarship Association, and as all you know, the GSA does. I cannot imagine doing a better job. They have just, I think, really figured out how to capitalize on the fandom, but also to encourage it and
you can
and
the fan base is. It gets older, but then you have younger people joining, and they have a different way of relating to sports. Right. And with and if you turn on any TV on a Saturday afternoon, starting early in the morning, with Sports Center on and College Game Day, there's 60 football games on a Saturday between all the channels.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a lot of static out there for the Grizz to not only maintain our existing fan base, which we do a great job of, but attracting more. You want to build the fan base beyond that.
Always want to build. Absolutely.
So switching gears for a second, again, our guest is Justin Barnes from GM of Learfield Sports and Grizzly Sports Properties. What's one of your favorite things about your job? What do you like about your job? You have it's a variety of different things, and the days must go by fast because
they do. We say that almost every day at 4:30. Our days go so fast, and for me, and I think most people in my position, I get to work with either whether they're corporate partners and sponsors, or whether they're our media partners like Town Square. I get to work with so many different people, and even if you took all of those hundreds of people away, every day I'm going out to meet new business owners and new marketing directors and new business influencers. So that is my favorite part of the job, is just, learning about what makes different businesses tick, what makes this community go, how can we help, figuring out our place with the Grizz. I mean, that's the biggest challenge I've got, is how can we continue to grow for them? And it's just like anything. I mean, it's not like we can just stop because we've done really well.
Right.
We are looking for more next year and the next year and the next year.
Well,
so we have to be
the additional
strategic.
challenge, which I think is a tough one. You have a dominating, football program that sucks up a lot of oxygen. Right. The Lady Grizz are probably the next biggest program we've had here. Right. Then the men moving up and maybe equal.
Right.
But we have a lot of we have a great softball team. We got a great soccer. How do you give them the exposure they need? Some people don't even know they exist here.
That is a great question. So we tend to focus, especially our high dollar partnerships, around the ticketed sports. So, we're like if you look at us like an advertiser, or as an advertiser would, you'd look at ratings. So football has, 27,000 fans at a game. So that's eyeballs and impressions. They get the TV, like you said, the radio coverage. For us to go to a soccer match, which is a fantastic experience. If you've not done it, I definitely recommend go to soccer, check out softball, check out volleyball. All of our sports are really fun, and our marketing team,
our tennis team is good.
Yeah, Bryn and Mikkel, who head up kind of the game day experience marketing for us, do such an amazing job at making our sporting events fun and compelling. They're all fun. But we obviously to keep capturing the high dollar partners have to focus a lot on, like you said, football and basketball. We are though trying to figure out the role that a softball, for example, can play with our local businesses who might not be able to afford an official partnership with a sign and a radio ad and a TV ad at football. How can we give them exposure alongside the Grizzlies at soccer and at softball and show them that the fan bases for those sports, while they might be a little bit smaller, in some cases a lot smaller, are just as loyal and will be just as powerful for them for the a comparable dollar amount.
But wait till we start the Hunger Games, then we'll have some big audience.
Right.
By the
well, here and I just happened to look down at this. So this is why sponsorship with us works. So we do, as Learfield, in accordance with the school or in partnership with the school, a fan survey every summer. And last summer we asked the question: does a business's sponsorship of the Grizz, or would a business's sponsorship of the Grizz affect your buying habits or impression of that brand? And 78% of our fans say that they would consider switching brands or buying habits to support a sponsor of the Montana Grizzlies.
That's incredible, really.
So it's not like our fans are just recognizing when you sponsor them. They're rewarding the businesses that partner with us. And that's really powerful when you talk about these numbers and the reach that we have.
One of the things you said to me when you first got here was you couldn't believe how many people, not just media people, but just more so just businesses, small businesses in town, co-opt the marks, the Grizzly marks. And it's interesting because there are certain people that don't even understand that those marks have a value that are you pay for.
Mm-hmm. And that's everywhere across the country right now. Teams are trying to figure this out. And there is. And
you don't want to shut it down because it's a good benefit.
Absolutely. There's a fine line between a business putting up a poster or, I'm a
Grizz supporter.
I'm a Grizz fan. We love that. Like, I want to see the Grizz logo as much as possible. The fine line is when it starts to be used for promotional reasons. So, with the obvious intent of building an affinity to a customer because of it. So if it's, hey, Grizzly fans come in and show your ticket and get $5, that's a lot different than just, putting up a Grizzlies poster because you live in Missoula.
Sure.
So who are some of the new partners that you've brought on since you started?
So like I said, I've been here since April. So Springs is Springs in Missoula came on with us this year. A great retirement community. Right. Grizz Wireless, which makes a lot of sense, came on board as an official partner. I'm trying to think off the top of my head who's new. I can talk about.
Talk about some of your other partners.
Yeah, some of the most recognizable.
Go to the G page, and everyone that begins with the letter.
They should be anyway.
But
the people you see, the sponsors you see really as recognizable are those that do see us as a marquee piece of their marketing and invest enough to be noticeable in all our venues. So it's the Providence Health and Services of Western Montana, for example. They are the official healthcare provider of the Montana Grizzlies and a wonderful partner. First Interstate Bank is a great partner. We team up with 5 or 6 banks and credit unions and find a place for each of them, and everyone is unique and wonderful.
Are you the one responsible for buying Grizz airtime on Bobcat football games?
No, that's funny. So that's the marketing department, admissions, which is
Well, they do, but we have that thing going.
Yeah. Reciprocity.
They advertise during the Grizz games, and we advertise on the Bobcat.
Yeah,
games.
which is funny. Yeah, and that's I think we're talking with marketing now about. Everyone knows it's on the front page of the Independent, admissions and enrollment, and how can we. And we're trying to figure out how can we help in that regard. And like you said, if they're putting ads in those game broadcasts, how can we use this massive megaphone of the Grizz athletic department to get people to come to school here?
And I think our spots are good. I think our spots are very good because they cover a broad spectrum of things that are happening at the university that generate excitement. They're just not sports announcements during a football game. Right. They're promoting the school. The good things that the University of Montana
does.
And
in a lot of ways, that just the Grizzlies being on television is a 3-hour commercial for the University of Montana.
Absolutely.
Well, it wasn't that long ago when we weren't. I mean, we were live and on radio.
I want to bring up one of his sponsors because it was we talked a lot about them before, Uber, and I'm going to tell you why. Because it's a great partner for you, right? But also
that's a new partner. Yeah,
there is it's interesting because there's a benefit that they're providing to the university, in the sense of, especially on game day, people going to and from the university, with all that tailgating, they're safe rides home for people that are either under the influence, can't drive, and you don't want them leaving, intoxicated.
No,
so
it's
now people can
fantastic.
get an Uber car, and Justin's enabled that to happen, which is great.
Yeah, that's an example of one of those
Utility.
partnerships that just comes together. And like Scott said, some people, not that many, but a few people drink at our tailgate lots, and to have a service not only that gives those people an opportunity to have a very safe, affordable ride home, but it also alleviates some of the traffic congestion. It helps us free up some parking spaces.
It's also an economic benefit to students. I was just down in Savannah, Georgia, and was using Uber for 4 days, talking to the drivers about how they like working for Uber and what's their clientele like. And they have the Savannah College of Art and Design, and they have Savannah State, and they have Armstrong. It's very expensive compared to here to park, and so students there basically don't have cars, and they use Uber, and it saves them money.
Well, these guys have done a great job in activating that sponsorship too, because we've seen it firsthand, and I've used it firsthand, so it works. Not to say that I was too inebriated.
Were you hanging out at my suite?
I left my car home. Anyway, let's take a quick break. We're going to have our final segment with Justin Barnes from Learfield Sports right after this. Okay, we're back with our final segment.
So, Justin, you got a lot of balls in the air. You got a lot of sponsors to deal with. You got a lot of sports to deal with. I know you don't do this alone. Who do you got there as part of your team?
I'm glad you brought it up. I was going to bring this up myself. So that could not be further, there could be nothing more accurate that I don't do it myself. I give so much credit actually to the team that I work with in my office, and then also the entire athletic department when we gel together and work on a game day, for example. So in my office, and our offices are located now. We actually used to be located off campus. Now, as of last year, we're officed in the Adams Center. So the main entrance, when you walk through the door, look to the right, you'll see Grizzly Sports Properties there. And usually us frantically running in and out to meetings. So I have on my staff this Jacqueline Sundberg, who is our senior manager of business development, and has been in that role, I want to say, 4, maybe 5 years. Sold television advertising in the market before, is loved, and is just so good at what she does. And I honestly, I could not have gotten up to speed here without her help.
Sure.
And then we also have a manager of business development named Jared Schmidt, who again is, those of you who know Jared and have met him, is just one of the nicest, realest people I have ever met, and has a real passion for what he does for the Grizz. And you see that through his sponsorships and the way he works with his clients. So those are my 2 full-timers.
Right.
The 3 of us really team up, and we're the ones that work to generate the revenue directly and are out selling these sponsorships. But then behind that is kind of our glue, which is we have 2 coordinators. We have a coordinator of partnership services named Andrea Daggett, who is the one who keeps us organized. And if you get an email from our office, it's usually from her. And we have Brady Batista, who's our coordinator of sales operations. And he's the guy that you'll see a lot of times running out on the field to pull off one of our crazy promotions.
Sure.
And helps us really coordinate the sponsorships that we sell.
So from the sponsors, is there something that they want or request or covet more than anything else? I mean, like being on the field or meeting the players or getting on the plane.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's the stuff that we tend to take for granted that I think means the most to our sponsors. And you see it on a football Saturday. If we bring one of our partners, especially if they've not done this before, but down to the sidelines to watch the Grizz come onto the field before a football game, I don't care how old you are. I don't care how many times you've seen it. I've not, I've done it 5 games now. I've been here for 5 games. I get excited like a little kid, and it's fun to watch these CEOs come down, and you can tell they feel the same way as a 12-year-old would.
Well, if you give them a sideline pass, one of the things that they figure out quickly, if they hadn't played, college or high school sports before, it's easy to be an armchair quarterback. Stand on the field and watch a play happen
That's
from
exactly
field level. And you get a totally different perspective and respect for the coaching staff and the student athletes when you see it, 20 feet away.
Yeah, if you think Kidder looks big on TV, if you're on that sideline, it's amazing how big those guys are.
And how hard they hit and how fast it happens.
That's a question I actually have. Are the players able to work with you and your sponsors? Is it a limited amount of...
So there are, and it's a book about 6 inches tall of NCAA compliance regulations and rules. So it's very limited in terms of what we can do with student athletes, and we wouldn't want. I mean, we don't want to to put those kids in that position. They work. I think what a lot of people don't understand is how hard those student athletes work. A lot of people think, oh, those football players get free school. They're just going to go to practice and then go home. Those kids do. Not just football. All of that student athletes. They have obviously practice time throughout the week, training time, conditioning time, and then travel or games on the weekends at home. So that's just their sports side of what they do. Then they also carry full course loads. They're not given a pass in academics.
They know most of these students are never going on to the next level. They know
and that's why it's Kent Haslam and the athletic department's main priority is to make sure these students get a full and complete and great education at the University of Montana because, the odds are you're not
we're
going
doing
to.
really well. What do we have? 9 players in the NFL, I think we have. They're active, unactive.
And some of them are your students.
Right, and that's fantastic for a school our size. But that belies the fact that there are hundreds during that time period who went on to be like the rest of us. They go out and get a job after school and have to use their education in the chosen field of endeavor outside of sports.
And it's that balance that they learn. I mentioned all those things that have to do with the sport they play. Then there's the academic side. Then there's community service hours that people don't realize. The Grizz are out in the community. They're out volunteering and reading to kids in the classroom. They're out representing the state of Montana and the University of Montana here and across the state, which is, in my mind, it's one of the coolest things that we do is if you bring a football player to a third grade classroom, that is like, in my life, that'd be like bringing Tom Brady to my living room. I mean, that's incredible. So,
little Giselle Bundchen.
So I don't know. I have so much respect for the student athletes. So you asked about how we can use them. In some endeavors, if it's a nonprofit organization where, especially if the school agrees, it's a good message that the student athletes can get behind. That's kind of the way I've seen student athletes. Otherwise, we don't try. We don't even tread on that ice.
Well, I think a very good point that you mentioned is there are folks who go to college and get scholarships, and the scholarship enables them to go to school. They get scholarship enable them to go to school, play sports, do community service. I mean, they're getting whoever's providing that scholarship is getting a huge bang for the buck out of a student athlete.
Right, and representing the state of Montana across the country.
Right.
Well, look, we have come to the end of the hour.
Quickly. Jason, that was terrific.
Jason, close enough.
I'm sorry. I know I was going to mess it up.
My older brother's Jason, so I get that.
My twin. Justin Barnes, thank you for being here and sharing your insights into the Grizz sports program.
Yeah, you've been a great guest. Delightful. We'll have you back after the next year, same time. And hopefully we go to the playoffs, right, Arnie?
Yeah, we're going to make the playoffs.
All right, I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening to What Do You Know? Our guest was Justin Barnes. You're listening to News Talk KGVO. We'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to What Do You Know?
I can't wait for the next show, Scott.
I'm excited too, Arnie. If you'd like to suggest a guest, send me an email at scottrichmond@townsquaremedia.com. We'll see you next week. And thanks for listening to News Talk KGVO, AM 1290, 101.5 FM, and newstalkkgvo.com.